Hey guys, hope you're doing well. I have some exciting news to share with you. I'm going to be cutting the eggs of my very first clutch in 2018, and I'm going to do some examples of how to calculate odds of hitting certain combos within the clutch. And lastly, I'll give you an update of all the babies as they crawled out of the eggs. So let's get started. First, I have to deliver a little bit of bad news, not about the clutch, but about the audio portion of the video. It came out really horrible, so I'm gonna have to just narrate over it like I do on majority of my videos. Alright, so here we go. One of the joys of an egg cutting is to actually cut the egg and see the baby for the very first time. Usually I do that around the 55th day, or unless I see one or two babies have pipped. Pipped means that they've cut through the egg and have at least pushed their nose through and taken their first breath. So I like to wait until that point. However, in this case, I waited a little bit too long, and as you can see through the lid, many of them have already come out, but I'm still excited about this. I have my handy dandy scissors ready to rock, and I'm just gonna pull open the lid. For some reason, this lid got really tight. So as I pull back the lid, you can see 5 out of the 6 eggs have pipped. I want to point out there's a little bit of blood on that middle one, which is totally normal. So here I'm just starting with the egg that hasn't pipped, and you can see it's very plump and full. The perlite at the bottom really helps to hold a lot of the moisture and then slowly release it. This egg was very plump, and as I cut it, you can see there's some veins that are still surrounding the baby. I did nick one of the veins a little bit, but as you can see, the baby's not injured, it's not in pain. It's a very healthy looking baby. From my understanding, those blood vessels are there for, say, oxygen exchange. They're actually lining the interior side of the shell, and the shell is permeable so that oxygen can enter. It enters the blood of the blood vessels, and then it gets carried to the baby, and wasted gas like carbon dioxide is then carried back out through those blood vessels and exchanged through the egg walls. Now on to cutting egg number 2. As you can see, this one has a lot less veins as it is further along in its development. Here I'm just cutting the egg a little bit more so we have a better view into the baby. Now on to egg number 3. This one has very nice contrasting color. Unfortunately, it's hard to see the egg and it makes it difficult to identify the morph. I'm just going to compare that with the second one, and you can see the contrast is a little bit different. This one, the black is a little bit more blushed out or diluted. But let's move on to egg number 4. Now this one is even lighter than the other ones. I'm going to revisit that first egg because I think that one might have been the lightest so far. It has the most blushings. And if you look here at the head, it is very, very light, very blushed out, and the lips are very white. Even with this horrible light that I'm using, I can tell that this one is a super pastel. Now before moving on to cutting egg number 5, I just need to clear some of these straws out of the way to give myself a little bit more room. Not sure if you're noticing this, but aside from the first one, all the other ones that I've cut after that has almost little to no veins or blood in them. This egg is probably the biggest out of the clutch. And the baby inside, it looks to be a lesser. It's hard to tell with the light. I'm actually using a soft white light, so everything to me appears yellow. So the styrofoam box, which is white, looks yellow. The eggs, which are white, looks yellow. And it's hard for me to see, but once I move everybody into the snake room, I'll have a better idea what they are, especially after they all come out of the eggs and go through the first shed. Now this is the last one, and as you can see, there's already a little bit of blood. Now I didn't cut it. The baby actually produced that blood itself when it tried to cut open the slit on the egg. Now I don't think Mother Nature would intend for the baby to hurt itself, so that's why there's no nerve endings in any of those veins. Even with the awful light that I have, I can tell this one has excellent contrast. I just love how deep and dark that black looks against the bright yellow. I do believe this one is a pastel as well. Hard to say if it's a super. Keep in mind, all of these are Het for Desert Ghost, and that's because of the visual Desert Ghost father. And they're also either Yellow Belly or Spectre. That's because of the super striped mother. Now I'll just leave these in the incubator to let them further develop, and check back with them in a day or two. Alright, so let's get on with the genetics portion of the video. I'm going to do something a little bit different in this one. Instead of trying to find out the odds of the best scenario, I'm going to find out the odds of the worst scenario. So in this case, the pairing is, we'll start with the male. Pairing is a pastel, and he only has a single pastel gene. So we'll just put NA for the other gene, because genes always have to come in pairs. And then for the second pair, he is a Desert Ghost, and he's a visual. That means he has 2 copies of the Desert Ghost gene. Because it's recessive, in order to be visual, he has to have 2 copies. Alright, so that's it for the male, and then we'll move on to the female. Now she's got a lot of genes. She also has a pastel, and that's all. And then she also has a lesser gene, and that's all. And she is a Super Stripe, and Super Stripe is a designer name given to a morph, and that morph contains 2 genes. Yellow Belly, which is allelic to Spectre. I'll just put S for Spectre. So these two are actually a pair. They are allelic, meaning that they form at the same locus point on the DNA strand. So they're actually, you know, side by side or adjacent to each other. So now I have all the genes represented, and you can see there's a pair here, Pastel, and then some other gene that we don't care about. And then there's a pair here, which is 2 copies of Desert Ghost. And then for the female, we have a copy of Pastel, and then another gene that we don't care about, a copy of Lesser, a gene that we don't care about. And then here we have Yellow Belly and Spectre, which are allelic. That's why they're paired up like this. So like I said, I want to calculate the worst case scenario. So the worst case scenario is we don't get a Pastel gene up here. So let's say we don't get the Pastel and we get this other gene that we don't care about. Over here, we have 2 copies of the same gene. There's no way to avoid this. We have to have at least one of them. So there's no point in calculating that because you're going to hit that no matter what. You're going to hit a Desert Ghost no matter what. And then over here, since we're trying to go for the worst case, we don't want the Pastel, but we do want that other gene, which doesn't do anything for visually changing the animal. It's not a morph. Same thing with Lesser. We don't want it, but we want that other gene that doesn't do anything. And then lastly, down here, these 2 genes, they are paired up, so we have to have at least one of them. There's no avoiding it. So it's just a question of which one. Now, we do know that the mom is going to pass down at least one of them. So we can just, for now, I'll put a 1 and a 1, because there's no need to calculate this. We're going to hit one of those regardless. And I explained in my past video that genetics are calculated in 2s and powers of 2s. So, you know, this denominator is a power of 2, and this fraction here represents 50%. And then if we go up 1, or in this case down 1, it'll be 4. So the 4 is actually also a power of 2 because it's 2 to the 2. That equals 4. And 1 over 4 represents, it's a fraction, which equals 25%, and then go so on and so forth. So you have 1 over 8, 1 over 16, 1 over 32, 1 over 64. I'm not going to go beyond that because a lot of people, or myself, just don't feel the need to try to combine or pair up 2 animals that, you know, the chances are hitting something beyond 1 in 64 because that chance is just so tiny. Alright, so now that we have all the genes and what we're after, we're just going to count up the 2s. In this case we have 1, 2, 3. We have 3 of those, so that's going to be the power. And this is the chance of a worst case scenario. So the worst case scenario is 1 over 8. And what does that mean, 1 over 8? Well, what is being calculated when we look at 1 over 8? So we have basically a het, because we know that one of these Desert Ghost genes is going to get carried. So we have a het, Desert Ghost, and then we have no Pastels, we have no Lessers, and we have one or the other. So it's going to be a Yellow Belly or Spectre Het Desert Ghost. So we have 1 in 8 chance of hitting this combo. So I hope that made sense, and if not, I think doing more examples like this would help in the future. I use this technique a lot, and it's become very easy for me to just calculate the genetics by first knowing what all the genes are in the pairing, and then just multiplying by 2 for those genes that I want, and then revisiting anything that is visually recessive, supers, and oleolics.
As promised, here's an update of those hatchlings from the earlier egg cutting. This is about 36 hours later, and I've decided to move all of them into their own tub. As you can see, 4 out of the 6 did come out. There's 2 of them still back there. They look like they're just about ready to come out. Now that I can see them under daylight lamps, they look vibrant. Their colors are amazing. I originally thought that I hit 1 super pastel, but it looks like I may have hit 2. I can tell they're supers because of the blushed out head and how white their lips are. As to whether they're yellow belly or spectre, well, I'm just guessing based on their pattern. I'll have a better idea when I'm able to see their belly. As for the other 2 that came out of the eggs, I think they may be pastel yellow belly and pastel spectre. Again, I'll have a better idea after their first shed and I'll examine them a little bit more closely. So that's all for now. They're going to stay in this tub together with moist paper towel and water. They're going to go into the rack and they're going to stay together until they all shed out. So stay tuned for an update video where I will sex them and try my best to identify the morphs. I'll probably need some help on that. I do have plans to hold some back, but definitely not all of them. So if you want to see an update video of this clutch or be informed of any new videos that I post, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like. If you know of anyone else who would enjoy this video, please feel free to share my channel. Thank you everyone, and I'll see you guys next time.